Redditors who made a lot of money by sheer randomness, what's your story? I bought a waterproof camera back in 2010 and thought it would be cool to try it out at the new water park that just opened. 1 year later the video blew up, making me tons of money monthly. I still make some during the summer months but not much. Now I'm sitting at just over 100 million views. Edit, since it's buried in the comments now, here's the video: https://youtube.be/6boohdf2tmg. Holy moly, it's only like 27 seconds long. I thought you were riding the water slides using it as a GoPro showing your point of view. You are so randomly lucky, as there's nothing amazing about it, yet it went viral. How much money on average, if you don't mind me asking? That's me in the red with the sunglasses. It seems I got 2 seconds of airtime, which equals 5.7% of your profits. I was also underage and shirtless at the time of this filming without consent. My lawyers will be in touch. In the 90s I fostered a dog for some friends who were leaving town and left the dog with me. This dog immediately made an impression upon me, and even though I really didn't want a pet at the time, he was such an amazing dog, he convinced me otherwise. He was super smart, half black lab, half pit bull. I called him Wisdom because he was so smart. Fast forward a few years, I used him as a mascot for a recording studio I set up. I registered the domain name wisdom.com. My dog passed away several years later and I was heartbroken and depressed for many years. I maintained the domain name even though I didn't really have any projects associated with it. Over the years people made offers on the domain name but I always passed. The domain was a homage to my long-lost best friend. Then in 2000, with the .com boom, there was renewed interest in domains and IPOs. I had a few groups bugging me for the domain name and kept increasing their offers. Eventually the numbers got into the life-changing areas of money, and I couldn't ignore them. I originally secured the wisdom.com domain name for nothing. In the early days of the internet, it didn't cost any money to register a domain name. You just had to fill out the right forms. I actually would never have to pay any domain renewal fees if it wasn't for a sysadmin that made changes to the domain and accepted new terms of service that forced me to have to pay renewal fees. Otherwise, the $475,000 I was ultimately offered in cash would have been pure profit. But instead my cost was a few $100s over the year. Still a significant windfall that gave me the opportunity to take that money and create another cool community of wonderful people. I continue to be in awe that my little dog, Wisdom, had the ability to bestow such an amazing gift upon me so many years later, and I'm determined to use that gift to help others. I took the money to create a special space that is a makerspace and club to help others. Edit, people have asked about what I've done now. Here's the new studio and our YouTube channel, don't have enough subscribers yet to do much. My neighbor died with no friends or family and left everything in her will to us. Everyone always asks if we were great neighbors to her. I'd say no, we were just neighbors and treated her as we would want to be treated and did neighborly duties for her. If it snowed, we cleared her driveway without her asking, took care of her cats if she went to the beach, say hello if we saw her. She was a tough cookie and an alpha female, would be the best way to put it. She hated if I played basketball in the driveway, and when we were cleaning out her garage after she died we found 3 of my old basketballs. But she was also the type of person, if she wanted an apple pie she would bake an apple pie and take a slice and bring the rest over to us. My wife's aunt died. She had been institutionalized her whole life and neither of us had ever even met her. We kind of forgot about it for a few months until my wife's uncle emailed her and said she was going to be getting some money. We were like, oh, okay, that's kinda weird, but not complaining. Then my wife got a phone call from the uncle one evening. I heard a lot of okays, and geez, wows. Turned out we were getting over $300,000. We were both grinding away making $15 an hour and barely making rent every month, and then boom. Out nowhere. That ended up being the difference between having a house and not having a house, being able to start a family and not being able to start a family, and having a retirement fund vs just hoping not to get evicted every month. I briefly worked with a guy who was in his late 20s, ex-military. When he got out, a friend of his he served with told him to buy Bitcoin. He bought several thousand worth when it was nothing and forgot about it. When it first started spiking and getting attention on the news, he started looking for the drive because he thought he had some. He did, and he had a lot of it. Sold well before the peak. Dude made millions. He had an $800,000 house, multiple high-end cars, and came to work a manual labor job because he was bored. Needless to say, he didn't stay long and all he did was show off his money and clock hours not actually working. Worked a job for a long time. Got hurt on the job. They, instead of helping me, terminated me. Got a lawyer. A year later got $260K for the whole fiasco. Not sure if this counts, but that's my story. How much was it after lawyer fees and taxes? I was hurt off the job. Went back too soon and kept informing my boss I wasn't ready and still having a lot of problems, bad, severe insomnia among others. My boss did nothing and kept me working. I got the feeling I was being targeted to be fired because of the sick leave, so I lawyered up, documented everything and recorded all meetings. The company got wise I was being smart about handling the situation, spoke to labor relations and decided to buy me out instead. Ended up with about $40K severance package. Enough to ride out my recovery at least. Kinda wished they were stupid and fired me instead. I also only paid about $3K in lawyer fees because I found a really good lawyer. I started an Amazon private label business on a whim in 2015. I made about 25% of the sale in profit after product, shipping, and advertising costs. Sales doubled every month for 6 months: June $4,000, July $8,000, August $18,000, September $40,000, October $84,000, November $175,000, December $362,000. I didn't know what to do. I quit my job in January to focus on growing the business, but my time was spent mostly trying to fend off competition copying my listing and posting fraudulent reviews and then lowering my price in the race to the bottom. It went well for a few years, but I never made as much as I made that first December. Lesson learned: arbitrage isn't a long-term business. My previous employer eliminated my position, Our whole department actually. I got a severance of 1 week/year which worked out to be 22 weeks of salary. Not only that, I got paid a bonus to stay on for the last 3 months. After that was over, I got a job with a competitor company making the exact same salary and doing mostly the same job. Started the very next Monday. I actually even like working for the new company better. I don't know how random that really was, but it sure felt like a real fortunate way to lose a job. I had a boss who was single, no kids, and making around $250K a year. He was set to retire around age 56, and the company begged him to stay on another year, so he did. During that year, the parent company suddenly offered a buyout to eliminate senior positions, offering a month for every year they were there. He had been with the company 30 years, and he walked away with an additional $600K or so. Last I heard, pre-COVID, he was traveling the world in luxury. I had an aunt that was basically excommunicated from my family for reasons that still are unclear to me. I was super young when the falling out happened, 4 or 5. She was married to some super old guy who was oil wealthy, and inherited his fortune when he passed. When I was 23 she passed, and crazily enough I was her favorite. She liked me, and in her letter left to me, I was the son she never had. I remember the way she used to play hide and seek with me but nothing else. It makes me sad that she was kicked out of the family and she seemed to have really though a lot of young me. She left me $2.4 million. I've always in the back of my mind tried to make her proud of me, 'cause she was the cool hide and seek and I never really knew. My friend's father was gifted an oil pencil drawing in the late 70s. His family always assumed it was pretty much worthless and I always joked that it looked like my friend had drawn it as a child. This stilly angry stick figure drawing ended up being an unsigned piece of art by Jean-Michel Basquiat. His family did some digging and eventually had it authenticated by the JMB estate before selling it at Christie's auction house for an amazing sum of money. I was absolutely blown away when I learned this. My friend and his family were far from wealthy, so to realize they had this unknown treasure just sitting out in the living room for so many years was mind-blowing. I was the victim of housing discrimination and the morons put it in writing. They literally sent me an email explaining they wouldn't rent to me because of illegal discrimination reason. Had they just not sent the email, they would have been fine. Nobody would have known they'd rejected my application for a bad reason. It's okay to reject applications for a wide variety of reasons. If they'd chosen a fake one, or even given no explanation at all, they wouldn't have found themselves in legal trouble. I made a complaint to my state and the state assigned a free lawyer to handle it. I didn't even know they'd do that. Anyway, the people kept lying and saying I was making shit up. They insulted my character in a wide variety of ways that went way beyond the issue at hand. Think stuff like claiming I was faking reason they discriminated in the first place, so how could they discriminate against something I was faking? It was just ridiculous. In the end, I wound up with a decent-sized check. Again, when I reported them I thought I'd never learn the result of what the state would decide to do. I was just reporting a broken law. But the best part was that the lawyer asked me if I wanted them to have to take an anti-discrimination class because, if I did, the state would include that in the punitive measures. I did. The class was 2 hours away from them in the constant traffic of our area, and I liked imagining them having to sit there in some ugly depressing room while being educated about why they were shitty people and needed to stop being shitty.